Hello, good evening to everyone, and welcome to the APARU Building Networks event. I'm Roberto Ferraris, and I will be the moderator. We'll have some wonderful guests, and all of them linked somehow to APARU. But before meeting them, let me first introduce you Nahuel Saluzio, the current president of APARU, who is going to briefly present our organization.
Thank you, Roberto. Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon if you are in Argentina. I wanted to tell you a little bit about APARU, our organization. We are a group of Argentinians living in the United Kingdom. We have two main purposes. The first one is organizing events like this one, events that have to do with the professional development of Argentinians in the United Kingdom. So if you are interested in these events and you would like to be in the loop, please sign up to our mailing list. You can do so on our website, that is aparu.org.uk. And then our other main purpose is a charitable one. So we organize fundraising events because we sponsor social projects in Argentina. At the moment, we are sponsoring two projects. The two of them have to do with health, as you know, we have learned how important health is in the last couple of years, right? The first project is about providing primary health service in some remote areas of Santiago del Estero. And we work with a charity called Fundación Genaro, and they support about 2,000 people a year. Half of them are children. The second one is about building basic sanitary modules in slum housing in La Matanza. We work with Horizonte de Máxima, and our objective is to raise enough funds to pay for the sanitary modules for 12 families. So if you would like to make a donation to us and help with these efforts, we would really appreciate it. That's also on our website, the link to donate, but it's also on the Eventbrite page of this event. Finally, I wanted to thank the people who made this event possible, starting with the Embassy of Argentina in the United Kingdom and with our ambassador, Javier Figueroa, who is joining this event. Thank you so much. Thanking, of course, our brilliant panelists that we have today, Gabriela, Rolando, Stuart, thank you so much for joining. We really, really appreciate it. The British Argentine Chamber of Commerce for their support, and of course our friends from the Anglo-Argentine Society. And last but not least, our marketing team at APARU. I know that they have been making a huge effort to promote this event. So Carolina, Larissa, Juan, for sure I'm forgetting someone, but thank you so much. And of course to the mastermind of this event, Roberto Ferraris, who will be your host today. So now I will stop talking and I leave you with Roberto and our panelists. Thank you.
Thank you, Nahuel. And now it's my pleasure to introduce you one of the supporters of this event, the Argentinian ambassador for UK, Mr. Javier Figueroa, who is going to talk about how can the embassy support developing business between Argentina and UK. So
it's okay. You are listening to me? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Are you seeing me? Because I just see an image in my window, my little window. But anyway, it is all right.
We can hear you, but we can't see you, Javier.
Okay. Look.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Now it's perfect.
Sorry, it's not my computer. It's my wife's computer. Sorry. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Roberto and Noel, for inviting me to open this panel. And I congratulate you for the excellent panel because, you know, it's very representative of what Argentinians can do here in the United Kingdom. From Stuart, which is the head of Globant UK, which is Globant is well, one of the 4 unicorns in Argentina. It's a very vibrant and creative company in Argentina. And Gabriela, who's in the translation business, and I am pretty sure that it could be a very big business, you know, this in UK. I am not pretty sure, but I think Spanish is one of the most widely speaking languages, and it could be a sort of lingua franca, not as an English, but you know, a very important one. And Rolando is almost a partner of the embassy. You know, Rolando, his company is the first importer of Argentine wine to the United Kingdom. And United Kingdom is our second market worldwide after US. It's not my first time in London. I was here as a secretary in the 90s, in the end of the 90s. On that time, it was very, very difficult to find wine here in London. Just a few wineries or restaurants, but right now is, you know, it's amazing. I can go to any restaurant or any winery. There is a lot of Argentine wine there. Going to the point of what an embassy can do for you know, for an Argentinian entrepreneur here in London, or what an ambassador do, because, you know, our job is a little esoteric for the public opinion in general, but it's much more focused in reality that the people think. We can work in different levels supporting companies. First of all, well, we represent a government, we negotiate with a foreign government, and in a way we create a framework in which the company operates in the bilateral relationship. And this is very important, but this is a more political one. But we also bring a sort of direct support of companies. For example, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which is also the Ministry of Foreign Trade, support missions, commercial missions to come to London or to any place everywhere. Or, for example, we provide as an embassy commercial intelligence for our ministry, for also particular companies. If they want to know what opportunities are in the UK market, we do some research and we send this information to Buenos Aires or the company directly. I think this is pretty important. And we also can help to develop business agenda. A big company or established company here doesn't need that kind of support, but small firms is really, really useful for them, and we are happy to do that. And of course, we bring logistical support, which many forms. One of I think the most valuable one is, well, using the premises of the embassy and the residence. You know, many of you know the Argentine resident in London. It's a very beautiful house, and we use a lot. Just less than a month ago, we did a wine tasting, a very big one, but it could be used for any event. Apart from that indirect support and direct support, as any other Argentine could count with the embassy and the consulate, you know, for supporting regarding, you know, visas, passports, and documents whatsoever. And another very important task of the consular job is when the citizen is in distress. And this is very important for us, and we are ready always to help. And last, one thing that is really, really very important for us is the developing networks with the fellow Argentines who live here. And APARU is a very good example of that. I remember more than 20 years ago, APARU was brainchild of Argentine citizens living here and with the official from the embassy. And I think it was a very good idea. And it's one of the best network as well, the Anglo-Argentine, and we have another network with the Argentine scientists based here in London, UK. Well, all these are some the things that normally the embassy do for Argentine citizens and companies who want to operate in the UK. And well, thank you very much for the opportunity to address you tonight. And I am sorry, but I had to leave you. I have an unofficial engagement right now. Thank you very much, Noel and Roberto, for organizing this event. Thank you. Thank you.
And thanks to you, of course, Mr. Javier Figueroa, and for your support and your words, and invaluable, really. And okay, now one detail before we go to the talk with the business leaders is if you have questions to them, you can write them in the general chat, and we will try to balance the answers in the slot of time allocated at the end of the event. So now it's my pleasure to introduce to you Stuart Dignam, the Managing Director of Globant UK. As Mr. Javier Figueroa just said, it's a very large company, one of the so-called unicorns, Argentinian unicorns. But I would prefer to give the word to Stuart. Can you tell us in your own words about yourself, a little about yourself and the company? Maybe answer a first question: why Globant open a branch, important branch in UK just after its foundation in 2002?
Well, good evening, and thank you very much, Noel and Roberto, for the very kind invite. It's a thrill to be here. And do you know what? I feel like a little bit of an imposter, since very clearly I'm not Argentine. Actually, I'm from Northern Ireland, and I've been living in London for quite some time. But it is genuinely a thrill to be here. In fact, my meeting just before this was with the British ambassador in Argentina and the trade ambassador. So I am having a government full evening tonight. But you're right to talk about Globant as one of the largest organizations based out of Argentina, and that has grown rapidly. I'm sure many of you know the story of 4 founders. And like many young men, they found themselves in a pub one evening, having a conversation about how they might think about doing things a little bit differently. And those 4 founders, Martin Magoya, Martin Umaran, Guibert Engelben, and Nestor, they have built an organization in, 18 years that has gone from 4 guys in a pub to almost 25,000 people. And that rate of growth has been explosive. And we'll talk a little bit about why it has grown so well and what some of the ingredients are. But you asked me the question about, how did Globant find themselves in the UK? And it's an interesting story because we had a client here probably about 8 or 9 years ago, lastminute.com, and I'm sure it's an organization that everybody is aware of and perhaps is used. But 8 or 9 years ago, it was new, and they were trying to solve a very difficult technical problem. And they got in touch with Globant, and we helped them create what is known as lastminute.com. And it was the first time that you could buy a flight and a hotel and a hire car and bundle them all together in a single basket. And that really was a watershed moment, not just for lastminute.com, but also for Globant. Because it was the first time that they'd had a major international client outside of Latin America. And that led then to phenomenal growth across the United States and across Europe as well. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit later on about, some of our other growth adventures in London and beyond.
Very interesting. Yeah, and so it's very, how strong is, yeah. So how strong is still the Argentinian arm of the of Globant is because now it's a multinational company with the developing teams in India and also in other places. So it's still
the Argentine culture and the Argentine ethos is still very much fundamental to Globant and how we operate and the sort of culture that our company has. So, for example, I am now an expert in Asado. My favorite wine is no longer a Claret or a Barolo. It is now a good Malbec. But I think that does also speak a little bit about how Argentines operate and why they are successful in Europe. We are all very social animals and social creatures. We treat each other with respect. We meet each other as peers. There is no particular rank or hierarchy. And that's really important when you want to do business in other countries, to be able to meet people as peers and have an intelligent discussion about how we solve particular problems. And that's something that is very, very fundamental to Globant. But then they also recognize that they are operating in many, many other countries, you know, Germany, France, Switzerland, Spain, across North America. And sometimes you need to have that cultural attunement. So, you know, the executive team in London is probably 50% Argentine, and the other 50% coming from local people. And that's the sort of ratio that we're very comfortable with. But as we grow, I think that the number of local hires will increase, but that won't dilute the culture of who Globant is and that very Argentine essence that we bring.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And I understand the company is growing in Argentina, developing in maybe not in deprived areas with access to resources, right? So promoting local development here and there, right?
No. Long before corporate social responsibility was a thing that had to be reported on annual reports, it was something that was fundamental to the founders. Because they recognized that traditionally, if you were setting up a business in Argentina, you set it up in Buenos Aires. And if you wanted to attract talent, that talent needed to come from Patagonia or whatever remote part of Argentina to have a career in the capital city. But what the founders did was start to create offices and those centers of excellence in some of the local towns. And I think that is a really important thing to do, to nurture talent and development and to, you know, in the UK, we have this terrible expression called leveling up, but to make sure that some of the wealth and some of the good fortune is spread beyond the capital city. And that's still something that's very important to Globant today. And so as I'm sitting here as a managing director for Globant in London, we're also thinking about where's our next office going to be? Because I don't want to be the MD of a massive London organization. So we're looking at offices in Leeds and Manchester, Glasgow, Edinburgh, Belfast in Ireland, Cardiff in Wales, as well as down in the deep southwest around Bristol and Bath. And that's very important that we're able to tap into those local communities where there are some very intelligent people and to give them the opportunity to develop an international career with an organization like Globant.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. What is more general, what opportunities or do you see in the current business environment, maybe at opportunities to grow and maybe in your sector?
It's genuinely interesting because, look, Globant, 25,000 people and a really large technology firm. And we employ people from all sorts of backgrounds, but more importantly, all sorts of skill sets and disciplines. That might be marketing, it might be finance. Undoubtedly, technology and being an engineer is at the very core of our business. And the majority of the people that we employ are engineers. But that is a vast area. It might be around data and analytics. It might be around cyber. It might be around digital sales. It might be around, you know, developing in some of the newer languages. It might be around consulting. It might be around what we call culture hacking. And that's how do you create the right culture within an enterprise so that you become much more agile and responsive to your customers' needs and requirements. So it's a very, very broad church. And look, if people are thinking about where should I send my kids, or if I've got a friend who's looking to grow a career, I would absolutely, without hesitation, tell them to contact us in Globant, because what we focus on is developing people. Because if I develop people, if Globant develops people and they have a rich career and they learn new skills, well, you know, we're a commercial enterprise. We're able to sell that to clients, and they're able to use that knowledge and expertise to improve a client's situation. So it's one of those truly virtuous circles that I'm particularly proud of. We're not just about, you know, dumping in a lot of people for the maximum amount of money. We really think about what's the impact that we want to have on our clients and how do we help them.
Great, thank you. And one last thing, if it's something that you would like to see maybe improve in the system to maybe facilitate a business between Argentina and UK, what do you have something in mind that would like to see improved? Yeah.
It's a great question, and so obviously when I was with the British ambassadors a few moments ago, we were having a very similar conversation. They're saying we can do stuff around, and you know, Javier was saying pretty much the same thing. We can help you negotiate different treaties, remove different barriers, but the most fundamental and useful thing actually is a large part of what APARU does, and that's help people build the networks and build the relationships. Because we're all in the business of helping each other and solve problems. And we all want to win new business. All of these other technical problems or political problems, we can sort of figure out and work out who to solve, because there's lots of people who want to help us. But what I really thrive on and what I find useful is meeting people who are thinking, I'm in Argentina, I've got a successful business. How do I break into the UK market? Well, look, come meet with us in a social environment or a business environment, and let's just start the discussions. We'll tell you about some of our experiences about setting up business as an Argentine organization in the UK, and we're going to help you along the way. That I think is one of the most powerful things that this organization and similar organizations can do. Help us create those networks and those relationships that allow us to help one another.
Oh, great. Thank you. Sounds, from your words, sounds very easy to do a very successful business between Argentina and UK, but yeah, it's very encouraging. Thank you. And okay, I think because of the time, I will go to the next, our next business leader, and I leave for the people maybe to to continue to put some questions in the chat. So now, well, then we will ask them to Stuart later. So thank you, Stuart, and we have a chat later. I don't know if it's something else you can add, but it's
I was struggling with technology. You would think as a technologist, I would be good at figuring out how to unmute. Look, I hope that we get an opportunity for some questions later on. Okay. Nobody really wants to hear me witter on, but if there's some questions, let's get to those later.
Great, thanks. Okay, now it's my pleasure to introduce to you Rolando Viñals, the CEO of Viñals Wine and Food, who deals with something more tangible than the software that we can see identify when we visit restaurants and food stores. And yeah, so it's good evening, Rolando. I don't know if
yes, I'm here. Good evening, everybody.
Can introduce yourself a little and your company. Good evening.
Yes, good evening. Yeah. Good evening, everybody. Okay, it's a pleasure to be here with all of you. I would like to thank APARU, definitely, all your objectives and of course Your Excellence, our Ambassador Javier Figueroa, who leads an amazing institution in the UK. and it's they have a really important role in all the professional and business activities in the UK regarding Argentina and the UK. So I think that this is an institution that could help all the people who would like to make this kind of business with Argentina and the UK.
Great. So can you tell us something about a little bit about the history of the company, something about yourself? Yeah, how, when you started, and I understand you started in like a business in Spain, and then you open a branch in UK. Why was that? Or
yes, okay. When I decided to leave our country, Argentina, I was searching a new business in Europe, and we decided to base and establish our company in Spain because we found so much business opportunities there. So, but then okay, we start with food, then with wines, and now our main business are wines and food, and we started to selling wines in the first British territory was Gibraltar. This was our first British territory that we sold wines. So and because of it, we was talking with our distributor in Gibraltar, and our distributor in Gibraltar asked me, Rolando, could we make business in the UK? Because I would like to make business with your wines in the UK. And I say, why not? Let me talk with our partners in Argentina, and we will try to arrange something. And this was the reason, or the main reason, that we started this challenging project. No, and it was amazing because, to be honest, at that moment I haven't realized in which business and in which market I was going to be involved. So and definitely the beginning was a little bit hard, but challenging at the same time. So I remember that I was trying to find the, like not the door, like a window to start our business in the probably our most competitive and difficult market that we had tried to make business. And the embassy at the moment was one of the institutions that helped us definitely. And all this situation that I am telling you occurred 7 years ago. So it's like a recent situation or recent beginning, and maybe this recent beginning could help or give like an orientation to other professionals or business women or men. So I was trying my first step was being in contact with our embassy in the UK. Then, or at the same time, I have been in contact with the embassy in Madrid, the British embassy in Madrid, and they helped us so much too, and they gave us at that moment a lot of information regarding how make business and how to establish a company in the UK. So they put us in contact with London and Partners. London and Partners, it's like a Londoner institution that helps entrepreneurs, or you know, and we through London and Partners we knew our accountant and different professionals could help us to start this business. But to be honest, I believe that the UK is probably the most practical and easy country to start a business. Other thing is to make a business, or to make real this business. But you can establish a company, and of course it's easy. One thing that we were thinking about it at that moment, maybe it was a thought that we appear in our business plan twice, because one thing I believe that is really important is not to think that if some business works in Argentina, should work in the UK. No, because this in the UK or in other part of the world. Now, this is I believe that this is important, and maybe this is a mistake that could everybody could fall. We were trying with different products, and finally we found our portfolio. So now our portfolio, our main focus is wines, emblematic wineries of Argentina, Rutini, for example, Bodegas Bianchi, I don't know, Humberto Canale, or Finca Las Nubes, from Salta, Patagonia, different, no? And also in food terms, we are the representatives of Yerba Mate Amanda, Giorgalos, that is the most important peanut exporter, Argentinian exporter, and other companies too. So yes, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Do you see? When was talking also the Basel, he said that there is a growing interest in Argentinian products. When we had the wine tasting event with the Phil Crozier, you know, the APARU wine tasting event, he mentioned also that it seems that there is the Pope that is from Argentina, Pope Francis, and the best football player Messi is from Argentina, and things looks curiously things about in Argentina. For example, I went to a Japanese restaurant here in Wagamama, and they only had one red wine, and it was Argentinian Malbec. But do you see also that growing interest in Argentinian products in your
yes,
business?
definitely yes. I believe that in Europe, one of the most open-minded country and market is the UK, definitely, right. Because the citizens are so much open to try different products from different countries. So and now we are running with an advantage with the wine and with the Malbec, because and this is important, and for our side we have to say thank you very much to all the investments that the business women and men have made in this area, because it's really difficult. The wine business is a long time business, because for example to have the first grapes to produce wines, you have quality wines, you have to wait 5 years. So it's a really difficult business. And if you take into account that you have to handle the weather, the climate, and it's really difficult. It's so risky business.
Yes, you mentioned that when you started doing business in UK, you get some support from the embassy or the consulate, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
What was particularly on that that they helped?
Yes, because something really important regarding our embassies in the world, because we are maybe one of the country that has more embassies around the world. So and the embassies has a lot of information, like market information, or to give to Argentinian citizens, or to provide information to tell in a better way for people who would like to make business with Argentina. So in our case, we have received a lot of information, like I don't know, maybe a market report, a market wine market report. So we have a lot of information. I remember that we have received a lot, like a report of, I don't remember, maybe 100 pages. A report of, yes,
that you can use on your business plan. And
definitely, yes. So it was really useful and helpful, definitely, yes.
Okay, great. And is there something that you would like to be improved in the system to facilitate business between UK and Argentina? And
yes. Okay, now we are surfing a really deep and difficult crisis, because you know that at the moment we have problems with the international trade and with the international logistics in general. So all regarding transportation, all the prices are increasing every day. So we used to pay for a full container, 40 feet container, $1,000, $1,100. Now we are paying $7,000. So we have to, it's amazing, and it's really difficult because we are working in a really competitive in price terms market. So have these changes, price changes in something that is let me think, inevitable. Bueno,
unavoidable, yeah.
Unavoidable, yes. So because we need this tool to have our wines in the UK. So and thinking that we have to pay 7 times more, it's hard to handle it, and to I don't know, to review your pricing policy. So it's not easy. We are and at the same time we are suffering all the problems regarding the pandemic. You know, with the pandemic now we don't have the same glass in the world, and this of course is essential to bottle our wines. So and Argentina is suffering this problem now.
Mm-hmm.
So yes,
Challenging times. Yes.
Really challenging time.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Rolando, and so if you have if the audience have questions to Rolando, you can put it on the general chat, and thank you. We speak with you later, and thank you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Roberto.
Yeah. Yeah, so now it's my pleasure to introduce to you Gabriela Lemon. She's an active member of APARU and also the director of Accentus Language Services.
So I'm trying to start my video, but
yeah, and see, I have okay, now you should be able to start.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yes. Correct. Thank you, Roberto. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks to you for joining the event, and can you tell us something about the company, how the services, and where are you geographically distributed?
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for having me here. I'm enjoying this much, being in such a company. At the moment, I'm in Argentina. I'm in Córdoba, also known as the Republic of Cordoba, or maybe the Kingdom of Cordoba. It's a little internal joke for Cordovisians only, I guess. But I guess it goes to the point that Stuart made, that there's, well, talent in many places in Argentina, not necessarily around Buenos Aires, and well, I guess that this is proof of it. So I run a language translation company, which I started, I'm originally a translator, and I started this business in 2006. So we're a little younger than Globant, but definitely never exploded in growth as they did. Because it's a services industry, and languages tend to grow more organically than technology. So it's of course considered in between professional services and business services, but it's very, very invisible. There's no place on a list. You know, sometimes we struggle to pick the right name for us, the right category for us in a form, for example. So but it's exactly like the ambassador said, that about languages, you know, they do have a huge potential for growth. That's the reason why the largest unicorns in the world invest a lot of money in doing business with languages, in developing them and researching language interfaces. All of them, IBM, Google, Amazon, we've had the pleasure of working with some of them. Sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly. And yes, the Spanish language is the second most spoken language in the world by number of native speakers, second only to Chinese. There are more Spanish native speakers than English native speakers. And of course, English is second for business, but it's not their main language. You know, people who speak English business, you know, tend to have learned it along the way. So yeah, Spanish has a huge potential, and yes, sometimes it can be a barrier for business and a cultural barrier as well. And yeah, like I agree with Stuart that building relationships has been the way for us to grow our business, not just in Argentina, definitely in the UK. And I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Rolando specifically, because I don't think he knows this, but he makes me look very good when I go visit my clients and potential clients, because all around the UK, there's always a place where I can buy the finest bottles of Argentinian wine. Be it Tesco, Asda, or even bargain booths, there's always an Argentinian bottle of wine that'll make me look good in front of my potential clients, and well, he's responsible for that. So thank you. And it's definitely the basis of good networking. Like Stuart said, the basis for it all. So and yeah, for Argentinian businesses, I think I was this morning at this DIT event. DIT is the Department for International Trade in the UK, about Latin American. They have a special Latin American unit, and they were precisely talking about this, how much room there is for trade. It used to be the focus of attention during all of the Brexit final discussions, you know, and now after Brexit, I guess the pandemic came straight away, but now I guess after the pandemic's considered over, we probably can return to that. And yeah, one of the topics was, is language, one of the questions actually was by one of the attendees, is language a barrier, you know, Spanish language. People in the UK don't tend to understand very well how many countries are in America, what languages they speak. It's like everything is South America, and America means the US. Yeah, that was, I guess, their job is to basically kind of break that barrier, and there are companies like ours that will help
your company
go
for example,
across from one culture to another. Yeah, well, what we do is we translate marketing content for businesses. Most of our clients are in the US or the UK or Europe, and they mostly want to come to Latin America with their products and services. And they start with marketing, but then they always go to some legal content, some training content if they have subsidiaries overseas, some HR. And so we've had clients in multiple verticals, which is something we're very proud of, and that helped us enlarge our variety of services, always language related, which made growth be very steady, however organic, but in the tough times of the pandemic, being diversified was a very good idea.
I understand you use native speakers. For example, if someone wants to place a product in Mexico, you use native Spanish speakers from Mexico, translators from Mexico to do that, right? And
yes, that's correct. Because there are many subtleties and nuances, even within Spanish, which could be Latin American Spanish could be considered quite neutral in itself across Latin American countries, but depending on the domain, it can get really specific. For example, fashion, food, even cars, things that are familiar, anything that's health related, like clinical trials involving reactions, patient diaries, all of that goes into their individual countries because they need the specific words that they will use. Some other things, like maybe a software interface, for example, depending on what the software is for, will not need such a degree of specialization. But yes, for marketing especially, you have to be local. And I guess that's true of every language as well. If you want to go from Argentina to the UK, you have to make the effort of being local. And I'll definitely, I think it pays off.
Yeah, good. Do you also offer this like a package service, like translate the website, the IT service related to that, or
yeah, absolutely. That's part of the services that we offer. Yeah, it's that's called localization. That's software or content localization, and we do that not just for software but also multimedia. So we do subtitling, dubbing. There's some content that we dubbed and translated on Netflix, some series and movies, and we do that mostly into Spanish and Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese. But for other services, we've had to, by being in the UK, we had to expand our languages, not necessarily being restricted to Spanish, Portuguese, and Canadian French, which will Caribbean French, that will be the whole of the Americas. Well, of course, US English, that you still need to adapt from UK English. But then being in the UK meant that we had to start looking into Chinese, into Russian, into Arabic, and other Asian languages, which are basically Indian languages, because of the communities that are living in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and
yeah.
how strong is the Argentinian arm of your company? Have as a percentage of people you have working there, or
the strongest? Yeah, the strongest. Yeah, it's our production office, and at the moment there's 15 of us, and I consider to be in between right now. Well, I'm physically in Argentina due to personal reasons. I should be in the UK. I'm started my business in the UK in 2019, and then it consolidated in 2020. Although the whole process started earlier, I would say it was a trade mission organized by the embassy and one of the chambers of commerce as well, probably 2016, 2017. But at the time, well, it was a slow process, like I said, and then it should start growing, but I need to sort out a family issue I have, which I should probably have, accept the ambassador's office to, I don't know, to work a solution, with a foreign office. I'm requesting the court to authorize my son to move to the UK with me, at least spend the school year there, and they need to do something, to take a look at the house and things in the UK. So that's basically it. And
so when
I would say growth will come afterwards. Yeah, growth.
So now
will come afterwards.
So now UK is the I would say the headquarters are considered now in UK since you opened the branch here.
Yes, because you have to be close to your clients.
Right.
It's a completely different thing to say I run a translation company in Argentina than to say I run a translation company in Manchester or even in Accrington, which is where I'm going to be based. You have to be local, and that's some advice. That's part of the advice I can give the audience. I was thinking, I was looking at the questions while I was listening to the other panelists, and I would say the only issue that I had starting my business in the UK was not being a resident, because you needed to be a resident to open a bank account, and without a bank account, there's no business. You can set up a company, you can do everything, you can even start having clients, but without a bank account. And I can go into the details if anyone is interested, but there was I was advised, but that I needed to have a local director for the bank to accept the application, but even that didn't work. I did try it, but it didn't work. So even until I had my residence permit, I wasn't able to open a bank account. I could use some of the alternative cash cards that aren't banks, but that doesn't make my business look good. So
looks dodgy.
It just doesn't. It's not reliable enough. So you're a new business. Nobody knows you. You're trying to set that, and also on the conditions of my visa, I needed to make an investment, and I didn't want to put the investment money on a digital bank with no physical address. That I felt a bit conservative about that.
Yes,
but it took us, even after becoming, and then the pandemic had an impact as well, because after I became a resident and I was able to open a bank account in a digital bank, but some institutions that are actually approved to function as banks and your deposits are insured, but then I still couldn't open easily a bank account in a high street bank. So I had to, it was a long process, and I guess the pandemic had a lot to do with that. But eventually, a year later, we were able to do that as well. And I would say that was the only issue I had. The rest of it is very positive, actually. I said this a couple of times already in a few presentations. I was at London Tech Week a couple of times, LaTeX as well, which is Latin American Day, London Tech Week. and it's mostly about technology, of course, services. And yeah, I traveled a lot before making this decision, and I can confirm what I said at the time, you know, pre-pandemic. There's such a nice, thriving business environment in the UK. I've not seen that elsewhere, not even in the US. The rules are different. It's a smaller place, but at the same time more dynamic. So it's a lot easier to meet the people you need to meet, to get to the places you want to go. So I feel very comfortable doing business in the UK, and I've had a lot of help from the UK as well. Their DIT, which is the international, the Department for International Trade, and the embassy as well, both of them, the British Embassy in Argentina, the Argentina Embassy in the UK, the Chambers of Commerce. So if anyone's asking themselves whether I should do it or not, I'd say yes, go ahead and try it. I also was paying attention to one of the questions about professional business services and health. Health is, especially after the pandemic, there are a lot of opportunities for health-related businesses. So anything that's digital health, services for the NHS, there's a lot of that.
Interesting.
Lots of opportunities, yeah.
And I think you mentioned, when we spoke in private also, that you you had the opportunity also to receive some research funding from universities, or apply for that
Yes.
in the UK. Mm-hmm.
There are opportunities for funding as well, and I did apply for it's considered like a training course or even an assessment for your business to receive funding eventually in the future. So basically, are you in shape or not? Do you have to fix things or not in order to be attractive for potential investors? And that's funded by the European Commission. So that's still pre-Brexit European funds that are being used in the UK. So I get all that for nothing, so I don't have to pay for that. And I also applied this year to the Women in Innovation Award, which is a grant, and it's the investment funds that go straight into the business for a specific project. And I was even surprised that I was able to apply for that, because you know, I literally just arrived, and I've had to double check, does my visa allow me to apply for public funds? And yes, it's a contest. It allows me to apply for these funds. So those are opportunities that I've never found in Argentina for growth. And well, I'm very happy to have them now. You know, we have a lot of talent in Argentina, and I think with the business opportunities in the UK, I think it's a wonderful combination.
Interesting. Yeah, and if there is something that you would like to see improve in the system to facilitate business between UK and Argentina, maybe what would you like to see? Maybe if you have something in mind.
I would say right now there is not much, I think, because I'm considering services and not imports and exports. I think services are okay because we don't need customs or logistics. It's pretty much straightforward. So from that perspective, I don't think there's much we need from Argentina. Probably some more clarity regarding some things. Of course, from a personal perspective, yes, it's taking too long to sort out my personal matters, and that is affecting the business. But from a professional and business perspective, I think the banks could have been nicer to have, you know, not so much confusion initially.
Yeah, money transfer across the two countries. Yeah.
Because
now
yeah, international funds transfer are just impossible, barely impossible. What I'm thinking of is opening the bank account in the UK and having that operational. That took some time because of the requirement. All the banks have absolutely different requirements. And that took a lot of time. And eventually I always got to a point before I became a resident when they said, sorry, we can't help you, try another bank. But I guess, I don't know how it's regulated, if it's centralized or not, but I thought that would have made it easier for me to set up my business. I understand why they have so much requirements, and I don't understand why the requirements are so different across banks. And I would say that's pretty much the only thing. For everything else, I felt it was a very straightforward. Of course, you have to find your place, you know, like Rolando was saying, not every business that's successful in a place is going to be successful in another place. Sure. But partially because that's what we do. Once you communicate it correctly and you present yourself in a way that they expect to see you, and you show the right image. For example, someone mentioned, oh yeah, I can see that in the comments as well. There's an example, we're open 24/7, translated as we're open on the 24th of July. Well, that's a typical translation error. And that's something everywhere. This is what I talk about all the time when I present abroad. And it's so easy with technology now to believe that an automated engine will do the work of getting your message across correctly. And sometimes the message isn't clear already in the original language, especially when it starts in Spanish, because we tend to go from A to B to C to D. And in English, you should go straight to the point and stop. You know, it should be a lot shorter and concise. And we don't do that. So you can't do that with an automated translation engine. So it just needs some extra adaptation. And translation tools, automated translation, is okay as long as if there are any errors in your translation, that's not going to have an issue. It's not going to create an issue. It's not going to have a consequence. And as far as I know, in marketing, in legal contracts or whatever, on HR, procedures, processes, you know, manufacturing, if there's an error, there are consequences. If there's a communication error. So I don't think technology, that's my advice for businesses, to double check that the image you're presenting, the products, the services, are perceived the way you expect them to be perceived, or you think they should be perceived, because there would be surprises there and it's easy to fix if you just deal with it ahead of time. In the same way as you hire an attorney to write your contracts, because you know you'll have a new kind of contract in another country because the rules are different. Well, it's the same way with communication and image. And there's only one image, one first impression you can make as a business, and it's not so big an investment that it's impossible to do. So I would strongly advise that newcomers to the UK take a look at that together with the other things they look at.
Thank you, Gabriela, and a very interesting talk. And yeah, so now is the time for the questions. I will leave maybe the first. I will enable the video and audio of the three business leaders. So if you want to do yeah, questions between yourself before we address the questions from the audience.
Well, I can start by telling Stuart that, yeah, I did that. I went to Globant, I think it was 2016, 2017, and it was exactly like you described. I can't remember his name, but I spoke with one of the original founders of UK Globant at the time, and it was great. It wasn't a very big office even then, and there were stuff. It was exactly like that. You know, well, I'd like to. What do you do if you wanted to start a business in the UK? And they just, you know, tell you everything. I think that's part of the business culture in the UK, and I really felt very comfortable with that.
You know, I wasn't here when the guys came over, but it was literally 3 guys from Argentina came to work with lastminute.com, and it grew and it grew. And we had challenges. And a lot of the challenges I think are common amongst the 3 of us. And it's, how do you access talent? How do you grow the team? How do you integrate effectively into what is a very different culture? And I'm very conscious that I'm at the advantage tonight because we're all speaking English rather than Spanish. And for most people on the call, English is a second language. And that makes things much, much more difficult. But again, it's tapping into relationships, and because it's a basic human trait that we all want to support each other and we all want people to be successful. And if someone comes and says, "Stuart, will you help me?" Like, I'm always going to say yes. I'm going to do my best to help you, and I think anybody else on this call would. So having those networks and that support, I think, is fundamental.
Great. I think we have a question from the audience from Larissa to Rolando. It said, could you tell us how much your company grew in terms of people working for the company?
Yes, okay. Yes, our company definitely has grown in staff terms, but our main channel of distribution is the outsourcing. So we have these 3 distributors in the UK. So we have a sales manager, some sales men, but for the very beginning, also in Spain and in Europe, we decide to have distributors. So maybe we are not the best example, company example regarding staff. But at the same time, I believe that this question regards to how to have maybe to find a work here in the UK. So or there, because I'm not in the UK, I am in Porto now. But I believe that this may be one of the best times to find a job in the UK, because all companies are trying to search and find qualified people. I believe that in employment terms, the companies in the UK are suffering.
Okay, thank you. It's yeah, nowadays many companies have a very lightweight structure and hire people also when they do grow, and or even yourself, Gabriel. I think not all people who work with you are staff, but you collaborate with external suppliers and on project basis, right? And or
yes, we do. Yeah, our staff is actually project coordinators, quality assurance managers, desktop publishers. We have training, HR. We do have a lot of staff, actual staff that's project managers and project coordination. But linguists and other talents like voice talents, for example, or designers, they will remain as needed for specific projects. And at the same time, we try to centralize as much as we can in Argentina. Sometimes it's impossible. Like example was mentioned about Mexico. That happens. Well, it depends on the project. But I would say, well, that reminds me of a little issue that there is with Argentina in general. Without getting into much details, the devaluation becomes an issue, and well, payments are difficult, in Argentina when your funds come from abroad, because of the exchange rates, basically. So and the bigger your network, the more complex it gets. So the cash, the flow of cash, which is not the same as the cash flow, the flow of cash getting to the right people could be complicated.
Mm-hmm. But I see Victoria Muschietti Piana asked, I was wondering if by business we are only referring to import-export of goods, or we are considering professional business that deliver physical health or mental health services. But yeah, we actually from this talk we had two companies which are based on services and only one in physical goods. So it's yeah. So probably she missed the first part, or but yes, so we are more, yeah, we talk more about services than physical goods, and yeah, so yeah, so I don't see much more questions from the audience.
There's someone raising their hand. I don't know if that's
okay.
a question.
It's raising the hand. Let me see. Okay. Maybe he wants to. I will ask him to unmute. And okay, he's.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, and also I really appreciate all the things that you've been saying. I think they're being very insightful, much more for young people like me myself, that I'm trying to learn more about business, how there are bilateral relations between the UK and Argentina. So I've heard that there's quite like a trend going on towards trying to improve the access to technology, as well as trying to keep up to date what's happening with, like, I don't know, emerging markets and the importance of new data. So I was wondering more so from my perspective, I'm from Argentina, I'm currently studying in the UK. And I was wondering, what are the steps that each one of you are taking, if there are any, in which you are trying to recruit new talent and young people? And what are things that maybe people like myself that are interested in getting to these new markets, maybe getting to new companies and working with them, what are things that we can do for your companies, or how can we sort of get involved? And well, I appreciate it as well, everything that's been said. So thank you.
I'll maybe pick that one up. As you know, we run a big tech organization here. Actually, you know, it's a bit of a buyer's market. You know, if you're a young technologist, the world is your oyster. There are many organizations. It could be Accenture, it could be Globant, it could be ThoughtWorks, and they all offer fascinating and you know, enriching careers. So we've really got to stand out. And there's a couple of ways in which we try and do that. Fundamentally, the projects that we sell and the digital transformations that we work with our clients on, I want to make sure that they're using new technologies and that they're exciting projects, because young people really want a challenge in their early part of their career to help them accelerate that learning. If we sell work that is doing some very dull commodity technology, man, nobody's interested in doing that. You know what? I'm going to leave that to the Indian players. And no disrespect to them. They serve a different part of the market at a very different price point. But for me, it's about making sure that we give our staff the opportunity to flex the intellectual muscle and to learn new skills. So that's step one in trying to attract the talent. And then it's about the retaining that talent. And that's about giving people the opportunity to grow further beyond just technology, experience different cultures, experience different industry sectors. And really, the more we can do to help our staff be successful, the more successful we become. So it's really having this outward looking vision that's not, you know, all about what's my revenue goal or my margin goal. It's about, how do I do good things for my clients and for the people who work with me?
I can add to that, as an organization that also relies on talent. We love to work with talent that shares our values to begin with, because I think that's the basis of talent adapting to our culture. We sometimes struggle with that because every country will have different traits, let's say, and sometimes timing is not the same. For example, in some countries it's okay to be late or deliver your part of the project a day late, and it's not okay for us. So we encourage people who are interested in working with us to look at the values, because you really need to, that's a starting point if you need to share them. And sometimes it'll be something that you bring from home, not necessarily the school you've been to, but something you bring from home, you know, like accountability, loyalty, attention to detail, being really efficient, effective, that kind of thing. It's a very dynamic industry, the language industry. You wouldn't believe how many times we're in a rush for a translation, and you say, well, no one's going to die, but yeah, it's urgent. It's the second most unknown language in the world. The second, it was on Forbes, this article by a friend of mine who said it's the second most unknown profession in the world, and the oldest, second oldest, most unknown profession in the world, and the largest growing, like $50 billion a year or something like that. So, and yeah, nobody knows about the language business. And I guess also that means that people will just have their own perceptions of what it should be like. And to me, it comes down to the values.
We have a question from Elisa to Gabriela, or she said either to Gabriela or Stuart. If you think that now after the pandemic, the location of where people are working becomes irrelevant. So if governments are working on adjusting, solving these issues, and accept the remote workforce as something standard, I would say. Yeah. So that's
I can start with that one. With us, we've been remote necessarily because of the linguists. It wouldn't make sense. You couldn't probably find a Vietnamese translator in Argentina, let's say. So now that's more accepted. And yes, the pandemic forced us to work from home, and that has worked because we were already structured to do that. We had systems in place, safe, secure systems in place, but it only works as long as there is good connectivity. So we are restricted to those areas in which there is good internet connections, and everyone living outside of the city of Buenos Aires will know what I mean by that. Yeah, location is irrelevant for talent-based positions. However, there are still restrictions, and I'm saying this, but also I can have an amazing script writer in France, and they live in the countryside, and their internet connection will be down 3 times a week as well. So it's not necessarily a regional issue. It's connectivity could be an issue anywhere.
Mm-hmm. It's another for. It says for everyone, but I think it was a kind of answer in parts. If the pandemic brings some business opportunities, I think for you, Rolando, has been not very good, the pandemic, but yeah.
But it has two phases. Because if you are in advance, sometimes. In our case, for example, if you have a stock or if you have bought your stocks previously because you saw these prices, maybe this could be an opportunity, and in our case, it's an opportunity because when we saw. Or when we realized the Chinese crisis in terms of international transportation, we were sure that this could become like a world travel. So we start to buy more than we need at that moment. And this is the reason that we don't have shortage in stock terms at the moment. So
and in your case, Stuart, do you see any opportunities in because of the pandemic, or any maybe some new opportunities appear there, or was it just bad for business, or no change?
Sorry, was that for me, Roberto?
Oh, yes. No, if the pandemic, in the case of Global, bring new opportunities, or was not particularly?
No, it had a major impact. And look, tech is wonderful. Tech is enabling us from Madrid, from Cordoba, from Victoria, London, to have what is a very enriching and engaging experience. Not all tech industries fared so well, and some struggled. But for Globant, we have never been so busy. We are recruiting more than 2,000 people a month to try and keep up, because industry is responding to people working remotely and buying remotely. And that relies on technology. So look, we've been working with a large automotive manufacturer because people can't go into a car showroom in the way that they did to buy a car. And if you're buying a car, you go in, you open the door and you close it, you flick the indicator stalks, and you do things that is a very rich experience. How do you replicate that from a laptop? How do you have that same richness in the buying experience? And so lots and lots of what we do at Globant is helping organizations connect with their customers in new and different ways. And that has led to unprecedented demand. And you can see that lots of the young folks on here who are involved in technology, they literally can walk into any organization and get a good job, because the demand for tech talent is enormous. I'll maybe touch on one of the points that we talked about a little bit earlier about remote working and the impact of COVID on that. I think that is fantastic. And we've all been able, I would say, to survive and sometimes thrive, but I would caution against this being the long-term solution. I think the pendulum has swung and people are, almost 100% from home. I don't think we'll ever go back to a time when we are 100% in the office. It will settle somewhere in the middle, because look, in my industry, we work with clients to create digital assets. Now, if we were to be able to do that exclusively remotely, why would they pay $2,000 a day for someone in London if they could pay $200 a day for someone in Mexico or in India? So the very nature of what we do is more than just the creation of a digital asset. It's how we fundamentally change the working practices of an organization. And that is not easy to do remotely. And then the other final point I would make is all of us who have got maybe 20 years in our careers, if we think back to what made us experienced and knowledgeable, it's not just what we learn from university or on courses. It's that act of being an apprentice and learning from one another in a very intimate environment. And that's hard to replicate remotely. So that's why I think that we will move to this blended model where people spend some time in an office, working with colleagues, recreating the culture of Globant or whatever the organization might be, that allows us to remain effective. So I think it's a really interesting time. And it is fascinating just to see human nature adapt to adversity and sometimes thrive in adversity.
Interesting.
I agree completely with Stuart. I was nodding along, and yes, I think the pandemic has democratized access to digital services and consumption, digital consumption, that in a way that wasn't accepted or even acceptable before. No one would have thought of having a doctor give you a diagnostic over the phone or over a video call 2 years ago, at least in Argentina. They would have never, unless you showed up at their practice, you would never be getting any help from a doctor, right? And now we're all now it's a standard. We expect that. Yeah. So I think the thing works the other way around, and now we tend to expect it. And I guess people like us and companies like Globant and ours, we're enablers of this. We're intermediaries and we're enabling this to happen. And I agree that from an insider perspective, remote is nice, it's fine, but in the right conditions. So I mentioned connectivity before being an issue, but then also from a worker's perspective, I have this office here in my house, I have this space, but I can't work from my kitchen table for long term or even short, mid-term. Short term, that was okay last year, but then long term, even home design will change for that to be sustained, and that takes a lot of money, for you to have the proper space in your house to do this. So there's it changed us, and I think we're never coming back to what it was, but definitely I think
and maybe it's good.
Everything's more even and accessible.
Yeah, and maybe it's also good for the environment, not so much traveling as before. It's remote working, and I think we're running out of time, so I think it's time to say thank you to you all. We have maybe a couple of questions still there on the queue, but yeah, so I know people have other commitments, so we need to close this event, and thank you to you all, and yeah, if someone wants to collaborate with APARU through we have our open doors for collaboration. There are people from our three guests are somehow linked, and so or even collaborate or donations also are also welcome. So I will share you have the link for make donations if you want on the event or and on the slide that I'm going to share now. And okay, and thank you to all, and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roberto.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, everybody. Yes.
Have a good night.
Ciao.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And cheers.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.